Live. Live.
And don't forget to click record also.
Yeah, yeah. So it's live right now.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening to all the members of Tiblane and participants of the present session, which is the fifth weekly Tibeto-Burman talk series. Our speaker for the session is Dr. Lalnun Thangi Chhangte. She is an independent linguist and translator of Bible hymn books and many other community translated books. She has developed written languages for 5 people groups as of 2019 and has others in progress. She has also translated some other Christian literature available for tribal communities in remote areas. She has done her PhD from the University of Oregon, and she has also contributed several research works in linguistics, especially Tibeto-Burman linguistics. One of her significant papers is Complementation in Mizo, which was published in LTBA Volume 12 in 1989. Dr. Chhangte will be talking about introduction to free linguistic software for field linguists in this session, and in relation to being a native speaker of a Tibeto-Burman language. So may I request Dr. Chhangte to kindly deliver her talk for the session. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and greetings to all the people who are on this group. I had said my talk is going to be on the software that is available for free. But before I go into that, I wanted to introduce myself a little bit so you know where I'm coming from. When I did my PhD in linguistics, and my PhD was on the Mizo syntax, I was the second native speaker of the Tibeto-Burman language to actually do a PhD on their own language. The first was Laurent Maran. He's from Kachin Jingpo, and he's based in Indiana. And after me was Ken Van Beek from UC Berkeley, and he did the reconstruction of Proto-Kuki-Chin. And
Madam, you are muted. Please unmute, madam.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay. Shall I start again? Yeah. Okay, sorry, I thought I had unmuted myself. I just wanted to give myself an introduction as to, where I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing. When I did my PhD, at the University of Oregon on Mizo syntax, I was the second native speaker of a Tibeto-Burman language to do that. The first was Laurent Maran from Kachin Jingpo, and he's based in Indiana. And after me was Kenneth Van Beek, and he did the reconstruction of Proto-Kuki-Chin from UC Berkeley. And so since then, there have been some from India that have done some work on their language, but still there are very few native speakers who have actually studied their own language and have produced academic work. So when I came back to India, I was very eager to train linguists, to write about the languages, to document languages. But I found that people were not interested. And the few students who finished their PhD in linguistics, most of them, became English teachers. And so it's only very recently that we've had linguistics departments developing here in the Northeast. And I know also that there are many native speakers who are interested but don't have linguistics background. So in my talk, I want to address both academic linguists and also people who are working on languages but are not necessarily trained academically in linguistics. And so after coming back to India, I realized that even though I had, you know, described my own language, the grammar, the average, well, I wouldn't say the average. I think, like my father said, well, this looks very good, but I don't understand a word of it. So basically, what I did, even though it was a lot of work, didn't mean much to my own community. And so it was like that for a few years. And then about 10 years ago, then people in Mizoram started contacting me and regarding the language. And I found out that there was a lot of problem, even though Mizo has a very high um, number of uh, publishing, both written and also a lot of audio and video, and the language is very robust. But there was a lot of problem involving the teaching of the language, especially since the orthography doesn't mark tone, and there's a lot of other issues. So, and I found out that they don't really have a proper grammar of Mizo that is has been developed for teaching. And so I started thinking, as a linguist, how do I connect to my own community, even though, Mizos are well educated and a lot of them, and we have a very large productive literature and people are very active in social media and all of that. But I found out that there was a lot of issues, language related issues that people were struggling with. And so I had many discussions, and the people I talked to, I answered them from a linguistic viewpoint, and they were very, very happy that I was able to explain the problems to them. And so they asked me to write a paper of Mizo grammar and the sound system in Mizo, and that was very challenging for me because I was born and brought up outside Mizoram, but I did that. And that made me realize that as a linguist, I need to make my work approachable and readable to people so that it is useful to the people in our community. And then also most recently, I was involved in the People's Linguistics Survey of India, and I was asked to edit the Mizoram volume. And in that, I wrote a chapter on the Mizo grammar, and I used non-academic language so that I want people could read that and look at Mizo grammar from a layman's point of view and not feel like they need to understand linguistics. So this is where I'm coming from. And most of my work has actually been in Arunachal. I've been working in Nishi and Adi, developed the orthographies and the dictionaries. And I also have worked also in Naga languages from Burma in developing dictionaries. So I do a lot of work using software and computers. And this is why I wanted to make this presentation, because I feel in India, most of our students don't understand software enough and they don't use it enough. And if we could train them and if we could help people understand them, we can get we can progress much faster, because most of our work is data collection. And what software does is it helps you manage your data. And when I first did field methods, my professor was Scott Delancey, and he used to tell us, he used to remind us, he said, when you collect data, make sure you just don't go collecting data, because too much data will, you'll have to end up throwing it out. So be careful to manage your data when you collect it. So that is one discipline that is really necessary when you work with languages, because you can just get off on a tangent and have pages and pages, and and many volumes of recordings. So that is the um, issue. And the other issue is, now that we're in the digital age, a lot of things can be put on the website and also on other archival sites. And I've been working with Shob now with Corcel to put up some of my previous recordings in Mizo, and that is up now, and you can access that too. So knowing how to use software is extremely important. And so this is why I wanted to describe it. I'm not going to demonstrate how to use it, or even show you where it is, because in this kind of platform, it was just too difficult. And so I have made a list of the software, and we will be going through that. Let's see if I can get to my next slide. Okay, here it is. Okay, so if you look at that, I basically looked at that. These are some of the major software. There are others too, but these are some of the software that you can start with, and you just have to Google them. You'll get the link to download it, and you can use it. So we say is good for recording. And it's the one thing good about it is semantically organized. So for example, if you sit down, you can, go through your body parts, hand, face, your nose, eyes, and get all of that in one sitting. And in village settings, that works really well, because people tend to give you lists based on the semantic, grouping. What is not good about the software is, and again, one thing about software is, if it's easy to use, then it's not usually very, if it's very user-friendly, it doesn't usually transfer well to other software. So we say it does not work well with a lot of the other software. So I would recommend this for people who are not linguists. It's very good, because you don't really have to know all the things. You just, it has all the lists there for you, and you just collect those words and you record it, and that's it. Whereas for linguists, you want to go further, then it would be a problem. And it's good for something you can give back to people, and people can see it easily and quickly. The other one is Toolbox, which is very old, and I've been using it for a very long time. And so most of you, don't even know what DOS is. So it's a DOS-based program. And if you are used to DOS, and you can, manipulate things, it's very good. But since it's very old, it's no longer supported, and it does not transfer well to Flex. But if you don't have a lot of data, and you just want a short dictionary, it's very easy to set up and use. And a lot of people, a lot of linguists still use it. A lot of linguists that I know prefer it to Flex, which is the current version of it. So even I still use it, and I like it because I've used it for a long time. The other one is Lexique Pro, which was developed around 2012. It's easy to set up. You can choose your languages. And by the way, when with languages, you need to know the ethnologue code for your language, because these software will ask you for the language code. So it's good to find that out before you set up. Otherwise, it will slow you down. And so Lexique Pro, being a more recent software, it has options for the web, XML, and other things that people do with newer software. But again, this I would not recommend for linguists. It's not the best for database. It's very simple and it's very limited, so you cannot do a whole lot of other things. But like Toolbox, you can do it quickly, and you can put recordings in, and and these are the kind of tools that if you're working in the village setting, people would really like. So that's what it's good for. Another one is Say More. It's if you have a lot of recordings and you don't know how to transcribe, Say More is really good because um, you, once you once you put the sound file into Say More, it breaks it up for you. You can ask it to break up the sound file for you, and then once it does that, it just goes one by one, for the breaks, and you can add your own breaks or remove the breaks, later too while you're doing it. So, but the only disadvantage is it's not very flexible. So you have only two fields. You can put the language and English. And in my case, I've been working with Ralte, and the Ralte speakers prefer Mizo and not English. So if I want to put English, I have to add that separately later. So that is the limitation of Say More. And it's a little complicated to set up. So you might need, someone to help you set up for that, but it's easy to use and it's pretty straightforward. Now Flex is the most difficult of all of these. But if you are a serious linguist, you really need to learn to use it because you can put all your fields, you can put your allomorph forms, and your other forms, and just about anything you want to put as a linguist, the phonetics, the sound files, and all of that. And it's really good for discourse analysis, but it is very, very difficult to set up. So you need to set this up with someone who knows how to do it. But they have groups that help you with that. But it's a very complex program. But if you are a linguist really wanting to work with a lot of data, then you need to learn how to use Flex. The last one, Bloom, is really not a linguistic software. It's more of a publishing software. It's very easy to use. You can just put in pictures, but like any easy software, it's not flexible. You can't change things. It has only one or two fonts you can choose, and it does not interface with other software. But if you're working in a village and you want to make a short book, this is very good. And the nice part with most of these software is they all have phone apps you can make out of it. So I do a lot of dictionary work, and so I am looking for software that will help me, convert it to a phone app. So Bloom has, you just install Bloom on your smartphone, and then you can read any of the Bloom productions. So that's what's really good about it. So so these are some of the really basic tools that for data management rather than analysis. And what I would my reason for bringing this up is I want to see if anyone has used these or are familiar with them and would be willing to help other students or other people interested in setting it up. And we can I don't know if in the future we could set up a session, but this is going to be very difficult on Zoom. So we really need so maybe when the universities are open, we can have sessions where we can do these, because it has to be interactive, and you cannot just it would take too long on a Zoom meeting. So my reason for just putting this up now is to see who has used this or will be interested in using them, and maybe try to set up a way of connecting people so that they learn, they can learn how to use it and get it set up. So that is the main reason why I did that. So these are basically data management software. Of course, you have other software like Pratt for data analysis, for phonetic analysis, but that is again very complicated setup. So And one advice I have for people who want to use software is a lot of people, they just want to put everything in the computer and use it. But I prefer, since I'm a field linguist, I like to have a notebook and I note things down first. And then when I have a good idea of what the language is, then I enter in the computer, because I find that if I use a computer right away and set up things, I find that I have organized things wrong, and I miss something, and then it's easier to start right than to fix something later after you set it up. So so I usually wait till I have enough data and I know what I'm doing, and before I put these up. So that was my main reason for putting this up. And I know there are other software out there, but these are the ones that are free and they're commonly used by most people I know. And I don't know which one of these are are used more in India, or if students are encouraged to use these, because I think now most departments, you have computer departments, and you have access to that. And one of the really good applications of linguistics work is dictionaries, and so these, so I've done a lot of dictionaries using Toolbox. I'm just show you a couple of them. Can you see me back now?
Yes, madam, we can.
Okay, this is one of the first dictionaries I did for the Adi language in Arunachal. Can you see this? And I did this using Toolbox, and Toolbox exports it nicely.
Ma'am, we cannot see the dictionary. What we have on the screen is questions. Questions we need to ask ourselves.
Sorry?
The dictionary is not, we can't see that. Are you presenting the?
Yeah, okay. So I have, these softwares, they will export it so that it's printable. And so you don't have to actually format it for printing. So that is the advantage of these software. So, yeah, so going back to what I was saying earlier, the reason I want to talk about software is I feel like the students and anyone doing linguistics should learn how to use at least one software well. So I've been using mostly Toolbox, and I'm now switching to Flex. And you also need to learn how to record audio, video, or find someone to do it. When I was doing my master's in linguistics, my professor Jerry Edmondson, he taught me how to do recordings properly. And this was all in cassette tapes. And even after 20 years, they're still very good quality. He taught me what tapes to buy and what recording equipment to buy, and none of them were expensive. You don't need fancy equipment. And with recording for linguistics, the one advice I'd like to give people is you need to use the mono, not stereo. Stereo will mess up your sound. So always use a recorder that has mono recording, and don't use, never use stereo when you're recording voice for your data. And like I said, we need to learn how to manage your data and organize it. And then there's another part of linguistics, which I've been finding out, is that for example, in Mizo, we have a dictionary which was done by one of the missionaries, and you'll have a name and you say name of a tree, several names, and it's just name of a tree, name of a flower, name of a plant. And, without pictures, any description, we don't know what it is. So, so if you know someone in these fields, they can give you the scientific name. And if you put the scientific name, then people will know what tree or plant you're talking about. And same with animals and birds. Because when I did field work, I bought all these books with the pictures of animals and birds, and I would show them to people. And sometimes they, had the name for it, sometimes they didn't. So that's very important. And I want to encourage students to present papers as often as possible. I try to attend a lot of conferences, and I'm always disappointed that hardly anyone from the Northeast, especially students, come to present papers. So I really want to encourage people to do that. And one of my concerns is the language policies that are being, and this is an area that as linguists, we often don't think about. It's the language policies that are detrimental to the smaller languages like ours, because if you have a 3-language policy, that means, English, Hindi, and then your language will be the 3rd language. And if you are like in, if you're a minority in your state, so like in Assam, you'll be English, Hindi, Assamese, there's no room for your language. So these are areas that as linguists, I think we need to really contribute in and resolve some of these problems. And I've mentioned dictionaries and grammar textbooks, which even Mizo, which I was surprised doesn't have it. And and especially minority language speakers, we're not proud enough of our languages. And I just want to encourage people to be proud of your language. So yeah, and this is just lost my Zoom there. So this is basically what I want to, the reason why, and I was talking about software before. So that's actually pretty much what I wanted to say. I wanted to spend more time discussing some of the things I've said, because I think a lot of these things don't come up, in our academic or in our, community situations of, how, as a linguist, how can we, use modern technology to help our communities, to help save our languages, to help promote our languages, not just our own languages, but other Tibeto-Burman languages. So I've done a lot of work outside Mizo, and also one of my recent projects is Chhangte, which is an endangered language. There's no village that speaks Chhangte anymore. There's hardly, very few speakers are left. But recently I did some work with them, and after that they created a WhatsApp group, and now people are learning Chhangte, and I'm trying to set up a YouTube for them, and putting up some of the materials up at Corsel at UNT. So that's some of the kind of work that, as linguists we can do. So I like to be practical. I don't want to be just academic, because people just look at you and say, okay, so what? You got a PhD, so what? What use are you to us? It's very humbling to go to a village. They don't care how many degrees you have. If you're not a useful member, they don't really, think much of you. So I think I want to encourage people who are working in languages, either in academia or privately, to actually try to be useful to our communities, and also to be academic. And so I don't want to give the impression that I'm against academia. academics is really, really important. All our work should be based on academia. It should be, the foundation should be, very strict academic thinking, analysis, and that is the foundation. But we need to go beyond that to be relevant to our societies. And I think the entire Tibeto-Burman languages of Northeast are endangered, and some are more endangered than others because we're being overwhelmed by other larger language groups. And if we don't pay attention to, like the language policies and the way, the curriculum, the grammars and dictionaries available to our groups, in about 20 years' time, we will all be endangered languages. So this is why I'm really emphasizing use of computers for data storage, data management, data presentation, and also for data analysis. So I know we still have more time, but I want to open up for some interaction, not just questions, but for discussion among us. And when I say us, I mean those of us who are native speakers of Tibeto-Burman languages, not that we're excluding others, but this is a situation that only we understand and that we face and that we struggle with. And I think we are the ones that have to come up with a solution. So anyone want to comment?
Okay, before our colleagues, our participants prepare their questions, I would like to really thank Dr. Chhangte. Dr. Chhangte, for the information of all, is one of the so-called best or practical linguists we have in Northeast, as he has already introduced. Was one of the first, or perhaps the first native TB language to do PhD from outside. She completed her PhD from University of Oregon, so way back when we were very young. So that is the kind of foundation she had in linguistics. So that aside, coming back to your talk, I have two questions. One is about soft vowel. So soft vowel is not in the form of a question. Most linguists in Northeast perhaps are not acquaintance with soft vowels. So basically, we don't follow soft vowels while we do linguistic analysis or data collections. So all that we depend on is we use some sort of notebook, and then at best we use Word. And some of these soft vowels such as say more and what else, flex, these are so important in conducting vast data and arranging them sequentially. So few linguists, young linguists, are now acquainted with this system. Mairapa has a fairly good knowledge on soft vowels. Hope we will get to have him very soon in future talks or in some workshop. So one of the ways in which we can train or help our group is to impart these linguistic soft vowels to assist us, help us in our research work. So coming back again to one specific question. So many of these what terms for fauna, flora, and cultural words may not. And as a researcher who is working on anthropological linguistics, we often come terms which exist or concepts which exist only in some languages, and perhaps we might not have ways to interpret them in any other known languages. The only thing is we can give footnote and then explain the phenomena. So these cultural words may be very difficult to deal with the scientific names. And fauna, flora also, it's very difficult to get scientific names. So some of the faunas and floras, for example, I was digging terms in Thadu, some of the what you call herbs, plants, and what you call weeds. All these names have no equivalent scientific names. So even giving an explanation comes no near to attending. So how do we handle this complexity of our cultural, social intertwine or relationship with language is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that is very difficult, and you won't be able to solve it, in that easily. It might be a lifetime project, but like I found out that the forest department, they do keep track of the plants and wildlife and everything in the state, and they do have all the scientific names. And I found out that one botanist in Mizoram had published a book of all the plants in Mizoram. So that was very useful for me. So you can see the scientific names. And so, maybe if you can find someone in the forest department, they would be the ones that have those names. And you might not find the scientific names for all of them, but at least you can put in a picture and maybe someone can, identify it for you. And sometimes, if you know the Hindi equivalent, then you can find it, but some are only native, and in a good dictionary, best to have a description, which part is eaten, how it is prepared, and all of that is very useful information. So, but for a lot of the more common trees and flowers, you can find the scientific names, but for the lesser known, is a little more difficult. So yeah, it's very challenging. So you're right. And I think if we collaborate more with the IT departments, with the software, because so when these software is developed by programmers, and the programmers don't know linguistics, and most linguists are not programmers. So these software, when you start using them and you find that you have a problem, you can write to them, and tell them, I wish I could do this, and the programmers would be happy to walk through with you, and adjust that. But like you said, the best place to learn how to use software is in a field methods class. That's how I learned to use it. So if you have a field methods class, then definitely put in like Flex in your class so that students learn to use it, because it takes time to learn how to use software. You can't just have a class in 1 week and learn how to use it. It'll take several months. And then, you learn to use it, and then you don't use it for a few months and you forget it again. So it's like that with software. So it's very time consuming, and you need to use it. And the more you use it, the better you get at it. So if you have a field methods class, I would definitely encourage you to look into it and maybe help, the IT people come and help you with it. Because sometimes there's a lot of software related issues, and most of these software have pages or numbers that an IT person can contact them regarding issues related to the computer. So I think it's very good to have a discipline of a notebook. There's nothing like a notebook and a pen and paper. But when you start having large recordings and a lot of data, then it's good to have the software, and it's really useful for analyzing and also making your dictionaries later on.
Thank you, Madam, for your informative talk on how these softwares like Toolbox, Flex, LexiPro, and others, how they can be useful for the community. And thank you, Dr. Haukip, for your first question. The other members can also unmute themselves and ask questions.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Mom.
Hello?
Please.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I must really thank you. That was a really wonderful talk and very brief, but very informative, very relevant. I have one simple question. Like out of the 6 software which you have told, I think which would be the best one to develop a dictionary?
If you're a
Because I
linguist,
have been trying to.
if you're willing
Yes,
to
go on,
struggle a
ma'am.
bit, I would recommend Flex. Flex is very challenging, but it is worth it. That is second to the last one, Flex.
So is this freely available?
Yes, you can
Or do
download
we
it
have
free.
to buy
These
this
are
one?
all
Is it
free.
freely available,
Yeah.
downloadable? Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Flex
Thank you.
is short for the field linguist. I think it's Fieldworks Language Explorer. Sorry, I didn't write out full form. Fieldworks Language Explorer. That's what it's short for.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. And I think it has a video demo. You can watch it, and it also has, I think, a demo example you can go through before you set it up. And before you start using these like Flex, it's good to know your grammar well. So so you set up your fields properly. So for example, in the Caucasian languages, we have what they call verb stem alternation. So I had to figure out how to set it up so that when I put one form, then I would cross-reference it to the other form and vice versa. And that took a little bit of setting up.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you set up for this course,
thank you.
The problem with Flex is the default is SOV, and then you have to change that to SVO, and that's a little tricky. So,
okay.
So I mean, yeah, it's sorry, it's SVO is the default, and most of us are SOV. So
SOV, yeah.
Yeah, so you have,
we have to change it.
Change that before you put any data in it. Once you put data in it, you can't change it. So.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Wanglit, for your question. I think Dr. Temsu has raised his hand, so you may ask your question by unmuting yourself.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for that informative, I think, talk for introducing us to the softwares. I just wanted to say a few things on the We Say software. So I've been collaborating with Alec Cook, and we have kind of having workshop, dictionary making workshops for the past, I think, 3 winters in 3 different communities in Nagaland. So it's a very, I think, simple to use software.
Yeah.
And even non-linguists, since it's basically developed for non-linguists.
Yeah.
After I think teaching these to the non-linguists, they can pick it up very easily.
Yeah.
And one, I think, 1 or 2 advantages of We Say is that even after you are away from the field, they can continue working and putting entries into this dictionary. So what Alec does is that even though we've had this workshops 2 years back, 3 years back, the community is still working on this, and then he sets up a server at Payap, and then so we can always download stuff even though we have this distance. So it's actually very convenient in that sense to be updated. I think it's also it also is compatible with Flex, as well as I think there's an app, SIL, as this dictionary app. It's supposed to be compatible with that as well, but I'm not sure. I haven't used it. The only disadvantage that I found was, I think they've stopped the support for We Say. I don't know why, but one is the support. I think it's now no longer there. And secondly, you can transfer to a PDF document. So
Yeah.
a PDF document, it becomes very easy to edit. And in order to get it into a Word file or a document which can be edited, it's actually a long process. So I found that the number of steps and other third-party programs that you need to install to be able to do that. So
that was my problem with
so otherwise
it's
I think
good
we
for
say
short
it's a
projects.
very good software, especially for dictionaries. I just had one question. Whether you have any experience with working with dictionary apps? So SIL has, I think, an app to make dictionaries. If there are any...
there are different apps for the different software, and I think once you finish it, then you have to run it through a program that will convert it to an app. So it's been a while since I tried one. I haven't tried one lately. So each one is different. And you were talking about sharing. Flex can also be shared online. Lex Say More is a little bit more complicated, and Lexic Pro can also be shared online. So we say that's what I say is good for short projects. So if you're a linguist and you really want to work with data, I wouldn't recommend it. But for community work, because it's easy, anyone can use it, it's great. But I would not recommend it for a linguist that wants to do serious work. Then I run into a lot of problems with it, trying to convert it, and it was a lot more work than so that's why I like Toolbox. Toolbox is very easy to export. You get the dictionary, and you don't really have to do a whole lot. It comes out really nice. So, but again, Toolbox is also no longer supported. So.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Temsu, for the question. Next, we have Meraba. He has raised his hand, so you may unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Temsu. This is just getting back to what Temsu was saying. The thing about the dictionary, the app building, the app builder, the dictionary app builder that SIL actually has. I have been actually using that. It's quite, if you actually are using Flex, then it's very easy to integrate it with the workflow that you're using, because the derivative that you can actually use out of get out of Flex, you can either get it as a lift file or even an HTML, XML. Any of those outputs can be used as an input for the app builder. Hello.
Yeah, they all have phone apps, and they keep changing them too. So you need to go back to
it's so. But if you are on the Windows side, I don't think it's quite. It's not complicated. But if you're running Linux system, then it's a little to get the APIs for the Linux system is a little troublesome. Otherwise, I think for if you're running on a Windows system, it's quite intuitive, and it's quite it's very self-explanatory. I think if you are on a workflow where you're using Flex, then I think it's just a derivative of the Flex project that you can use as an input for the dictionary app builder.
Yeah. Like they update their software, quite frequently. So it's nice every time they update it, it's easier to use. So I think every year or two they update their software. So.
Thank you, Mr. Meraba, for your question. Are there any more questions from the participants?
Related to what all of you have been discussing is what happens when you work on softwares but runs into a problem during publication. This is for general benefit, because most publishers may not be informed with all these software. So is there any risk involved? And if there are risks, how do we avoid?
Well, it's usually I just export it as a PDF file. You know, most of these software, they have the option of exporting to a an RTF file, and then from there you can export it to PDF. And what I usually do if I want to publish is I go to the printer first, and then I show them what I want to make, and then I ask them, how do I lay it out? So different printers have different requirements. Some of them will say, well, put 2 pages on one side, on one page side by side, or they'll give you some other instructions. So I always go to the printer before I do the layout. You can have the printers do the layout for you, but they will charge you more. So if you know how to do the layout yourself, you save yourself a lot of money. And so I have a large printer, so I do all the, if you need only like 100 or 50 books, it's easy to do it yourself. And and sometimes if I want a nice cover, I just go to the printer and have them, put the cover for me, and then I just pay for the binding, which is maybe like 2,000 rupees. So, so for small communities, if you know how to do it, it's that's another thing that people need to learn, is how to use maximize software like Microsoft Word, how to use it. And in India, people use PageMaker, and the reason why you should not use PageMaker is because in modern software uses we call it fonts. PageMaker is not Unicode font compliant. So if you have any special characters and you import it to PageMaker, it will come out with garbage. So do not use PageMaker, even if your printer says they want it. Insist on using PageMaker, then give it to him as a PDF document. So Unicode fonts is what Windows, I think from Windows, after Windows XP, everything is Unicode now. So.
Okay, before others can come in, because we have sufficient time. Regarding your experience on working with Ralte, and some Arunachali's language and some Naga languages in the borders of Myanmar, what is your general experiences? Some is one, and second is how different is Ralte from other Kuki-Chin languages? Because you have collected some text, and we have no document available for Ralte. So in your assessment, how different is Ralte from other Kuki-Chin languages?
One of the features of Ralte is it has first person, plural, inclusive, and exclusive, which Mizo doesn't. And also it does this plural differently. The morphology for plural formation is different syntactically. So that is one major difference. And also phonologically, there are some differences. So syntactically, it's a plural formation that makes it difficult for Mizos to learn to speak Ralte, because it's quite different. And rather than the words itself, a lot of the words look very similar, but the syntax is significantly different. So I think I don't know how, generally for Kuki-Chin, I don't know how to compare it, because I don't have enough data. But it does have verb stem alternation, and it has the person and the verb agreement forms, which again syntactically are different from the ones that I know. So it's very interesting. And my experience mainly in working with languages is I find that, like, for example, one of the languages working with the Idumishmi, when I first started working on it, people told me, they said, you can't write our language is impossible to write down. So I took up the challenge and I created, an alphabet and, working on dictionary. And then I taught them how to read. And then when they learned to read, they were quite surprised that their language could be written down, and actually, put some things for them in the phone app, and they were able to read on their phone. So phone apps are very useful in getting people to accept, written form of the language. And it also helps in resolving orthography issues, because if they can get the font on their phone, then they will accept it. So I find that people often think the language is too backwards. It can't be written. It doesn't really have a grammar. It doesn't have enough words. And you start working on it, and they realize that they do have a rich language, and you do have a very complex grammar and a lot of And when they see books in the language, then people they get really happy, and they really appreciate that. So that's why I like to go to undocumented language areas. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, Dr. Hawkip, for the question on the Ralte language documentation that Chhangte ma'am has done in recent years. I just was curious to know about Elan, because I have used Toolbox and Flex during my research. And how compatible is Elan with Flex? If you could clarify that to me, then I would be enlightened.
I haven't really used Elan and Flex. Elan is actually more for audio visual, it's really not a linguistics tool, but Elan can read Seymour files. So if you have audio files and you transcribe it using Seymour, then you can easily read it from Elan. But once you read in Elan, Seymour saves it in another file. You won't be able to see it in Seymour any longer. So that's how I use it. It's supposed to be able to import and export, but it hasn't worked for me. So I think Elan is a little behind. So the older version of Flex might have worked with Elan, but until Elan upgrades the software, it doesn't work with Flex. At least when I tried to import and export, it didn't go very well for me this time. So, but with it was able to read the Seymour files quite easily.
Okay.
But for Elan is really more for presentation, whereas Flex is more for your database for linguistic analysis. So so Elan, you can make YouTube and things, and like especially for videos, it's good for videos. Then you can put your transcriptions there. But it was really not designed to be a linguistics tool. It's just yeah, it's a very powerful tool, but I think they need to upgrade it a little bit more to keep up with Flex, the current Flex.
All right. Any more questions participants have?
Can I have one?
Yes, please.
Madam, thank you so much for the presentation. I was having two questions, but you have dealt with Wanglit Mongsan regarding the software, the best software you recommend. That is done. And regarding that question is partly had been asked by Dr. Gautam Hawkip regarding that Ralte community. I was under the impression that Ralte is a surname of Mizo tribe. But then today you have said that there is a different language of Ralte. So
yeah, that's
Ralte is supposed to be now something like sub-tribe of the Mizo community?
Yeah, it's because the word Mizo actually includes a lot of different tribes.
Okay.
And many of these tribes have lost their own language. So a lot of people use their tribe name as their last name. So Ralte was a tribe. They had their own custom, their own language. And it was separate from the Lusei, which is, the largest tribes among the Mizos. So many people have the last name Ralte, don't even know that there is a Ralte language. They think, they're very surprised to find out that Ralte is actually a tribe that has its own language. So if you count everyone that has the last name Ralte, there are thousands of them. But so in the ethnologue, it says, there are, about 30,000 speakers of Ralte. That's because they just counted everyone that had the surname Ralte. But if you actually go looking for the speakers, you'll find only a handful. So yeah, most people who who are out there themselves don't know that it is a language, and it is quite different from Mizo. And it's actually in Grierson's Survey of India. There, it's listed there.
Okay, madam. So the real Ralte speakers, how many people of them, the real Ralte speakers, as of now, do you have any idea of that?
I don't know. I don't think there's even 100 of them left. I've asked them to do a census. They haven't actually counted themselves. So it's really a handful, very few. I did a field survey once, and we went to a village which they said was a Ralte village, and we found out that the children no longer spoke Ralte. So they knew some of the songs and the stories, but they no longer used it. So
okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
yeah. So they're scattered, on northern Mizoram in the Kachar district, and some in Manipur and Tripura side in that region, general area. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mosil Kaling, for your question. Is there any more question? If there's no more question, then may I request our secretary, Mr. Bijen, to kindly deliver his vote of thanks.
Bijen proposed his vote of thanks. We would like Madam Chhangte to be available for us whenever Tibeto-Burman requires your help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. A big thanks and appreciation to the Dr. Thangi Chhangte. Thank you very much, Madam, for sparing your time with us. And as Dr. Bogthang also pointed out, we would like to hear you again, ma'am, at least maybe a brief introduction on the software that you have shown to us today. Not very in depth, but at least we want. It's not me only that I think many of my friends might be having an aspiration to see it once how it works. So not in the analysis part, but how to use those software. We would like to hear again, ma'am. So I think you may give us time when we approach you for the next talk. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank all the participants who have met their time convenient to attend this particular session, and those who were actively engaged during the Q&A session, Dr. Bogthang Haukip, Dr. Temsu, Dr. Wanglit, Dr. Bairaba, and Mr. Moshel Sangten Kaling, and other attendees who were very actively engaged during the Q&A session. I really would like to thank them, and we would like to see you again in the upcoming Tibeto-Burman weekly talk also. So thank you everyone for sparing your valuable time for this particular session. So thanks all. Then I would like to hand over to the our Tibeto Secretary Monali for the end note.
Thank you, Dr. Bijen, for sharing your views and the necessity of support that we need, I mean, from Dr. Chhangte Ma'am for Tibeto. So we will need your guidance in the future activities of Tibeto anytime. And as Dr. Bijen has said, that we are very thankful to all the members present here. It is the, I think, fifth weekly TB talk series, and the last talk series of 2020 will be next week on Saturday at 5 p.m. And then we will start again in January 2020 on 9 January. So thank you to all once again. We will see you next week, and take care. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mulani, and especially Bijen Kumar.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Thank
you
you.
also, Wanglit. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah,
Good night.
very active. Yeah.
You must
Good night.
Wait, tapi bang kan ada.